Hey, Sarah. Hey, Jeff.
Can you hear me?
I can. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep. All good.
Great.
Hey, Jeff,
Hi, Sharon.
how you doing?
Good. How about yourself?
Good. Your name says Lindsay Lara.
I know. I need to fix that. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to be sure if you could hear me. I know I had some technical issues last time.
We can, yes.
Perfect. Appreciate it. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah. Hey, Crystal, if you can hear me, can you just speak to make sure your audio is working? We've been having kind of some strange issues in the previous DRV meetings.
Hi, Jeff. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Perfect. Thanks.
Yep.
Hey, Denise. Unmute your mic and see if your audio is working.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome.
Right.
How come I'm not seeing all your faces? I can only see Jeff Ballantyne's face.
In a few minutes.
Okay. I'll mute.
Have we started yet? Unmute.
Not yet.
Not yet. We're just waiting.
One, 4 board members so far. So.
How's everyone doing tonight?
Good.
Good.
Chair, are you ready? I see the DRB members just joined. Stepped away for a moment. Oh, there we go. Oh, you're on mute. Chair, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, great. Do you want to kick us off, or?
Absolutely. So welcome to the regular meeting of the Design Review Board on March 22nd, 2022. This meeting is called to order. I'll now request staff to call the roll for members who are present and those who are not.
Absolutely. Board Member Blaney is not present. Board Member Kent.
Here.
Board Member Paul.
Present.
Board Member Summers.
Present.
Vice Chair Kowalski. Oh, Vice Chair Kowalski.
Here, can you hear me?
Oh yeah.
Now we can.
And Chair, I might have mispronounced your name. Can you confirm if your name's Reg or Reggie for me?
Reggie, thank you.
Reggie, okay, perfect.
Here. So next we'll move to the meeting procedures. Due to the COVID-19, I'd like to ask staff to address how public comment will work this evening.
Absolutely. So yeah, good evening, everyone. In addition to accepting written comments up to the DRB meeting, staff is accepting public comments over telephone. Members of the public are invited to participate via conference call at the following phone number, 669-900-9128, and the meeting ID is 816-4876-6170. If you're participating by telephone and wish to provide comments, please press *9 when the chair opens the public comment period for the item you'd like to speak on. This will virtually raise your hand. Once it is your turn, you'll hear a notification that the host is inviting you to participate. At that time, please press *6 to unmute yourself. You can then speak and introduce yourself, and you'll be allotted up to 3 minutes to speak. And if you submitted comments to the meeting by email or letter prior to the meeting, it has been forwarded to the Design Review Board.
Thank you, Jeff. Now let me describe the meeting procedures. We'll begin with a staff report for each item with a limit of 5 minutes, followed by the applicant's presentation, which will be limited to 10 minutes. Members of the public will then be invited to speak, as Jeff just described. Community members on the conference call can speak when they receive the notification they have been unmuted. Each person's comments will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. Then the board will have the opportunity to ask questions of staff or the public after each segment. We'll close the public hearing and bring the matter back to the board for discussion. So at this time, does anyone with an urgent communication on a topic that is not on the agenda may address the board at this time? Please know that anything raised has not been noticed or agendized, so there will be no discussion on these new items.
Great, so to give those instructions one more time, to comment on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature. If commenting by phone, please press *9. Once you hear a notification, the host is inviting you to speak, you can press *6 to unmute yourself. And scanning the room, I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, With no urgent items, we'll now move on to the consent calendar, which has one item, the minutes from the February 23rd, 2022 Design Review Board meeting. Are there any comments from the public on this item from the consent calendar?
All right, again, to comment on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature. If commenting by phone, please press *9. Once you hear a notification if the host is inviting you to speak, please press *6 to unmute yourself. And scanning the room one more time, I do not see any hands raised to speak on the minutes.
Okay, this is all going to be so much simpler when we're back in person someday soon. Is the board prepared to make a motion on this item? And can you please, if you're prepared to make a motion, please announce your name prior to the motion, just so the folks that may not be on the visual can know who's speaking.
Okay, Member Kent moves to approve the minutes as submitted.
Okay, is there
Larry
a second?
Paul, second.
Is there any discussion? If not, then I think we can vote.
All right. Board Member Blaney, I believe, is still absent. Board Member Kent.
Aye.
Board Member Paul.
Aye.
Board Member Summers.
Aye.
Vice Chair Kowalski.
Aye.
And Chair Reggie.
Aye. And with that, the motion is approved. And so now we are going to move on to the action item on the agenda tonight. Item number 2, 88 Vivian Street. And now we'll start with the staff report. Is that back to you, Jeff?
Contract Planner Crystal Rizzi will take it from here.
Okay. Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Good evening, members of the board. As you are probably aware, we reviewed this project back in December, and it's returning to you this evening as the motion at that hearing was a recommendation to continue the item with direction given to the applicant to address the site plan to include some additional landscaping, as well as tenant amenities and usable open space. So this slide is showing you the original site plan, which is located on the top of the screen, and then the revised site plan, which is located on the bottom of the screen. So there's 4 specific areas where the applicant has addressed the comments with regard to open space. And then, as you can see, the landscaping has been significantly increased and kind of specifically paying attention to that main project east-west drive aisle, where the board members had recommended some additional landscaping to break up the hardscape and just make it a little bit more of an enjoyable experience for the individuals that would be residing at the site. So I'll go ahead and start with the first revision, which is located, as you can see on the screen here. So I have the area highlighted, and then the open space amenity is enlarged just so you can see it a little bit better. So this area was amended. The building type was modified from a 4-unit building type to a 3-unit building type, and this was done to accommodate the area that you see outlined in red. So this is approximately 750 square feet and includes seating and landscaping. The second area is kind of the main open space area. So previously, it was a little bit smaller, as noted in your staff report. The distance between the 2 residential buildings has been increased. So since there's kind of a little bit of a jog here where it's, kind of flush with the buildings and then kind of comes in, the area previously ranged from 45 feet at the front to 67 feet at the rear. And this area has now been increased to be 61 feet to 75 feet approximately. And the overall square footage has been increased from about 5,700 to 6,000 square feet. The amenities that were previously included were bike racks, benches, a small turf area, some shade structures, barbecues, tables, and chairs. And then the applicant has also added a play structure as well as some additional benches. The next area is located a little bit more centrally in the site. As you can see in the top image here, there used to be uncovered parking spaces. These have been removed and now accommodates an approximately 1,200 square foot approximately 1,200 square foot open space area with benches. As I understand, this is an area for cornhole or maybe some other kind of recreational activities that people can engage in. And then lastly, near the Belvedere Street frontage, this building type has also been amended, and the applicant has actually introduced a new plan type for 1-bedroom units. And similarly to the first area we discussed, this area just kind of provides some seating and some additional landscaping. Here I'm just showing you some project renderings, which are also in the plans. You can see this is the intersection of Belvedere and Vivian Street looking south. And at this corner here, you can kind of see the amenity area, the last one that I just discussed that you can see from the public right-of-way. And then this is showing a rendering of the internal drive aisle. So as you can see, the landscaping has been added and it breaks up kind of the big blank walls of some of these interior residential units, and just some shrubs and other landscaping amenities that just soften the appearance of the internal portion of the site. So to conclude, as I mentioned, the applicant added 3 additional tenant amenity areas and increased the overall size of the largest open space area kind of in the central portion of the site. And then the landscaping has been increased from approximately 15% to 20%. And so staff's recommendation is that the board discuss the project revisions relative to the direction that was given at the last hearing in December. And then if the board so chooses, they can impose design-related conditions of approval, and then staff's recommendation is that the board forward a recommendation of approval of the proposed site and building design to the city's planning commission, which is tentatively scheduled to be considered in May. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. And now I think we'll ask, is the applicant here? Do they have a presentation that they'd like to do?
Yes, ma'am. What you see on your screen now is from Crystal. If you guys can all see that. It's our little slide deck that we updated from the last presentation. So I do understand that we only have 10 minutes to present. And I know we went a little bit over last time. So if you guys don't mind, I'd like to jump right into it and try to touch base on all the focused items that Crystal alluded to earlier in her presentation. The 3 major key items of that being open space, resident amenities, as well as the landscaping throughout the projects. I do see a couple of new faces here on here, so I do want to say welcome and appreciate you guys attending this meeting. For quick background, if you didn't know from the first presentation that we have site constraints. Crystal, if you go down a couple of pages, this project had a slew of issues where we had a flood zone issue, a fire access issue, stormwater treatment issue, and then just an entire redesign. If you go to the next slide there, Crystal. As you see, the secondary access point has been moved to Belvedere Street, as initially it was proposed to go onto Vivian, dealing with public works, dealing with fire, and dealing with the building officials over at the city. We were directed into coming into more this route, which alleviated some of the stress and some of the access points from the stacking and the buildup of traffic throughout the site. With that being said, that's the quick background. Now I want to jump into our current issues and how we solved it. Crystal touched base on a lot of them. Crystal, next slide, please. We touched base. The biggest hurdle for us from the previous meeting was the lack of open space and just the overall feeling of not enough landscaping. So what we did is we took a creative approach here with building types and product segmentation throughout the site. First and foremost, we were advised that the open space wasn't evenly distributed throughout the project. So what we tried to do was add open space to the west, to the east, as well as enhance the middle open space and make our primary open space larger in general. It was recommended by several of the members on the previous meeting that there wasn't enough going on in that primary open space. So what we did is we added a jungle gym play structure for all the kids to enjoy, as well as the turf area, shade structure, and bike racks, which hopefully the goal is to encourage a more vibrant community feel and gatherings to get together and have more of a fabric tight knit community here. And if you shoot over to the far east along Belvedere, we divvied up that previous building type, and we got creative and added 4 one-bedroom units, which we think is going to encourage that young professional to come in and take a look and want to live here, and at the same time provide more open space on the east in case you had an Uber come pick you up or taxi come pick you up, or you just want to be picked up or dropped off. Be well lit and just gives the entire community more of an open togetherness feel. Crystal, if you want to jump down a couple of slides, I wanted to show the board. Here you go. Here's the enhanced open space photos. You can see where the jungle gym is. It's going to be image 5, as well as the turf area and the shade structures for all the residents to enjoy. As open space was the major feel, that's what we wanted to add. Crystal, if you go down the next slide, we have, keep going, there's an internal view that looks down the street. There you go. You can see we added enhanced pavers there to give it more of a feel. And you can see there's trees that align the buildings all the way down the length of the drive aisle to really give it that soften the hardscape. So I know member Kowalski said the initial plan seemed a little bit too rough, and if the resident would walk out their front door, they didn't feel like they were home. They didn't feel it was comfortable. So we wanted to be sure that we gave it that community feel, and we believe this site plan does just that. That touches base on the open space and the landscaping, and as well as all the other site amenities. You guys do know that there has been a lot of site constraints, and from the previous time we met, the application wasn't deemed complete. Public Works didn't have their hands involved entirely. Now we're sitting here today with the application deemed complete, with approvals from each department: planning, Public Works, building, and fire, all with the green light to go ahead and present this to you tonight, with the hopeful expectations that we get approved to take this forward to Planning Commission. With that being said, that's my quick spiel on what we've improved. Denise, our architect, is on the call as well. If she had any 2 cents that she wanted to add to help talk about the creative juices of how we got here, please hop on and talk quick.
Chime in. No, I think you did a great job, Matt. And both you and Crystal have covered all those big hot buttons. I do think that personally, I feel like this client has kind of bent over backwards and has heard everything we've said. You guys have had some really good comments about open spaces, and I really think that we've gotten creative by adding this. A livability factor, honestly, is really an enhancement of what we had before, just made it a little bit bigger. We've been creative with bringing in another building type, which I think is also rare in today that someone's willing to do that. But this is like little 1-bedroom studio apartments facing Belvedere. It really makes a lot of sense if you're an urban designer. And we're looking at what we're offering the market. So we like that. We like that open space node at the end. As Matt said, you know, Uber's a big thing now, and getting out on a visible street like Belvedere would be really creative. Our landscape architects have that idea. I think it's a good one. And creating spaces to have that outdoor living, because we know this is a dense urban living project, but that's what this zone needs. And bringing 70 units to the table feels responsible, and it feels exciting. And I know that people are going to be excited to live here. So I hope we can feel like we have addressed all your comments, and we're here if you have any questions.
Yeah, and then just to touch base on that, thank you, Denise. One of the tones was just the walkability of the community from the previous meeting. So by eliminating some of those parking spots, we're able to kind of open it up to more of that walkability feel. We don't want people driving. We want people walking. We want people utilizing the bike racks, their bikes, go enjoy everything that this great area has to offer downhill in the Canal District, and really open it up and fill the housing need that the city has identified in this area that needs more for sale housing. there's quite the deficit here, and we think this is the first step in the right direction of what this entire county wants and deserves. So with that being said, I think that wraps up for us, and hopefully you guys have any comments, questions. We're here to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for being efficient with your presentation. Does the board have any questions for either staff or the applicant? I see Jeff.
I have a few questions concerning the playground. The surface around the play structure itself, is that a rubberized resilient surface?
Yes, that is the intent, and that's the idea. Our landscape architect is not on the call to discuss materials, but that would be the intent, and it would also be the artificial turf for low maintenance, drought tolerant, and just safety in general.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my other suggestions. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to put in real turf. There's really great artificial turf products out there now, and you get away from the water and the chemicals, etc. Another question on the playground. I assume the target age group is like that 5 to 13 or 5 to 12.
5 to 12. Yeah, correct.
Okay. And then I have a couple questions on sheet PR5, if we can see that.
Give me just a second. I'm going to pull up the plans.
There it is. My first question is the planter there, is that just CMU block?
Sorry, got it. I think that was the intent. It has that urban feel and look, and works nicely. Do you not like it?
I would probably make it stucco to match the building and pick one of your building colors, maybe the siding, the darker one, but I could live with the body color, any color that you thought was appropriate. But I think CMU is not in keeping with the quality of the rest of the project. And then the other, now we're kind of dangerously close to comments here. My other question is, what's the height of the step onto the landing?
The height to the step up the landing?
The city sidewalk to the landing going to the front doors?
So what I would have to check with our civil engineer. I know it is in our civil plans in the entire package that we showed and was vetted through Public Works, but I'd have to look at those. I would those designs to clarify.
Again, it's kind of dangerously close to comments, but I would definitely consider making that 5 inches minimum. And if you can't do, because anything less is a tripper. If you can't do that, you may want to consider ramping it. Anyway, those are my questions.
It will be more than 5 inches.
Good. I think it's more elegant with a step, so, but it's got to be at least 5. Okay, yep. Those are my questions and most of my comments already.
And member Kent, just to clarify, so I have it from my notes, your comment about the planter bed, is the raised planter bed right there?
Right, the one that has kind of the purple flowers.
Yep, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think CMU is a little under-designed.
Thank you.
And I think Larry, did you have comments or questions?
Yes, I did. Couple things. I guess you lost 4 parking spaces. Were they guest parking, and were they required, or have we lost any guest parking? Or what was the?
So the entire community development standards are met to a T. There is no guest parking or additional resident parking required through the development standards and the general plan and the zoning code. So we offered those initially just because we thought some residents would appreciate a couple extra guest parking, but after our initial presentation, we felt that the open space and the landscaping and the amenities trumped the extra 4 or 5 guest parking that were going to be offered.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Going back to the PR5 drawing that Jeff had up before, had a couple questions about that. It looks like the front entry doors on these street elevations are just basically punched openings in the wall. There's no recessed entry like the other units in the rear. Is that correct?
Yes.
Had you considered doing something a little more with doing something more to enhance a sense of entry in these units. Being that it's right on the street, it seems like it's quite exposed, and to me, I'm just wondering.
Well, Mike Cantrell, I'm not sure if Mike is on here as a presenter, so I'm going to speak. He's our architect that designed these, but this would be what I think he would say. I would think that we're a contemporary architectural style. Those front doors are protected from the deck above. And I think that by doing the color on the door against the stucco of the lighter colored stucco, oh, there's Mike. There you are. Behind the lighter color stucco gives them a dominant feel and blends in with the street scene. That's what I would say, but Mike is really gonna be the one to say something.
No, that was good. All of a sudden my screen changed. I would say the same. We're going for that contemporary look, and we are protected from above. And that's just the look we're going for. We don't have room to put the deep recess on there, and we feel it's appropriate the way we've shown it.
Well, then let me ask you this: how deep is the bay? How deep does the bay above extend over the front door?
3 feet.
And the next question would be: do you feel like these doors or these entries are exposed to the street?
Maybe that's hard to answer, but no, I think for that urban feel and that closeness to the street is acceptable for the type of neighborhood we're providing.
I guess the other question I had is, did you consider any kind of fencing for security?
Nope. I think we're going to start. Oh, am I still muted? No. Mike, I'm going to say, can I just chime in here for a little bit? Because to me, that's a urban planning design planner type question. I think really, if you're going to, we see this as a catalyst site in this area. And I don't think putting behind fences and gates was the idea, wasn't the plan. We're really trying to, I know the area is in transition. Someone has to start that process somewhere. So I feel, I think we all feel as a design team that behind a gate was not the plan, behind fencing was not the plan. This is very integrated and permeable with the city. And hopefully this will just be the start of the next one and the next one and the next one. And then all of a sudden this fabric will really begin to take shape. So no, we don't really have space for fencing. We didn't want to block everybody off. We think that front streetscape with the intermix of the architecture and the landscaping is a good mix. It's not overly one way or another. And we've got eyes on the streets and eyes kind of everywhere. We felt like this is what was going to embrace the community and thought that's what everybody would like.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's
all my questions for now.
Okay, thanks, Larry. Any other board members have questions for the staff or applicant? Sharon?
A question about the biggest park. What's the rationale to putting it at one side and not more in the center of the site?
I can answer that. You know, we are trying to provide and I don't know, Crystal, maybe you want to go to a site plan. We can talk about that. We wanted it to be in view of the entry. It's not immediately in view of the entry, but it's as close as we could get it. We are bringing, and we've been through the design of the West End before, so that became an issue with fire, hose pole, etc. We're bringing a product type to the market, the housing stock that really works off of drives and alleys and works together. And we like this location because it works well with the product line. While it isn't immediately in the center, it is also not backed up by the buildings on the south. And I don't know if you can appreciate the aerial that you're seeing underneath there, but those are buildings that are right at, you know, up against it. So it's a little open. It feels better in this location, and it's kind of in view sight as you enter from Vivian. And the product line that is there is an alley loaded, front doors on the park, a garage is in the back, and it all kind of works together. So that was our drive. And then it kind of gives that now, because we got really creative by putting in that open space at Belvedere. It sort of is a draw. It's a little bit of a barbell. This is the main. It's a little insulated from the rest of the community as well. So we like that location. It feels open and enjoyable.
Yeah, and then to elaborate on that, Member Kowalski, if you guys recall from the previous meeting, we had power poles coming in this site off Belvedere with the building type. We were able to and you guys brought it up and asked what those are going to do there. And again, we got creative with building type and work with our utility consultant and work with the neighboring communities and able to remove those poles altogether. So you have that open space now on Belvedere as well is more open and unconstrained by these power poles. So we're trying to make it as beautiful as possible and as comfortable for the future residents as we can. Thank you.
I have another question. How does it break up, like full market value? I don't know how what's your mix of who's in here?
Affordable housing, is that the question?
Yeah. Like, is the affordable housing far from the park and the better housing near the park?
No, you could see. So what the city likes to see in planning, as from the direction of planning, is they wanted to see our affordable housing mixed throughout product lines, not necessarily location, but it was plan types. So we've offered each plan type an affordable housing requirement as dictated by city and state, and gave them options.
So does this color code tell me which is affordable housing, which is market rate?
The ones, yeah, if you look at the dashed lines on the lower left of the plan, you'll see the affordable units. And that's dictated by checkered pattern, and then those are the low income levels. The moderate income levels are going to be the just diagonal dashes through the plan type.
Matt, just a second, because I do want to clarify that all of the units are going to be affordable at the low income level.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way that they can get the density bonus that they're requesting. And we have requested that the applicant do provide a revised plan prior to going to Planning Commission to make sure that these are all being shown as low income.
Yeah, which I believe, I believe we did. I believe we did. I guess this plan just doesn't show that. But yeah, that was updated, Crystal. Thank you.
Any more questions, Sharon?
No.
Does the board have any other questions for the staff or the applicant?
So just to, I missed the first meeting, sorry. So Crystal, you were saying that the entire project meets an affordable standard?
I'm sorry, can you clarify your question?
The last answer you gave that there was a question about the percentage of units here which are in some form of the affordable housing standard, and you
right. So the inclusionary housing requirements changed. The project was submitted as complying with the prior inclusionary housing requirements, and then the housing requirements changed. But the base density for this site is 58 units. But by meeting the inclusionary housing requirements, which now is 10% at the low income level, that automatically affords them a 20% density bonus.
Right.
So that's how they're getting those extra 12 units.
Okay, so they're going to the 10% that was a reduction. Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Right, correct. Yes.
Okay. Does anyone else on the board have any questions for the staff or applicant? Okay, I don't have any other questions. So now we're going to open the public hearing, and I'll ask Jeff to open the public comments, reminding each person who's speaking that you have 3 minutes to speak, and we'll have to call it if you're going over, so please keep to those 3 minutes. Thank you.
Right, so again, to comment on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature. If commenting by phone, please press *9. Once you hear a notification that the host is inviting you to speak, please press *6 to unmute yourself. Please limit comments to elements under the purview of the Design Review Board, design analysis, and evaluation of development proposals for their use and setting based on design standards adopted by the City Council. So with that, I see Marianne. Okay, so we have at least one attendee, so I will, Marianne, it is now your opportunity to speak. You are currently muted.
Hi, everybody. Wow, it's a great project, and it's really wonderful to have more housing in Marin County and affordable housing. I've worked with unhoused children for 25 years in the canal. I've lived in the canal for 22 years. Let's talk traffic. I don't understand. I read in the documents about the need a traffic plan. I've been in the canal on East Francisco during blackouts and fires and lots of traffic. It's taken me 2 hours to go 2 blocks up canal. My concern is evacuation issues. At Bellum and East Francisco, there used to be 2 right-hand turning lanes. They improved it, they took away 1. There's always a bottleneck. So that's one issue. There's just a lot of density in this neighborhood. I've lived here. There's no parking for anybody. They took away, at the end of Canal Street, they took away the park for 6 spots. There's a little family park that you guys just graveled over. So I feel like there needs to be more done. I have no idea how many parking spaces you have on your site. I did go through the documents. I'm not like a legal person, so reading these kind of documents are trickier. So I don't know how many parking places your 70 units are going to have on site, but it is a crisis in this neighborhood and traffic is hideous. So that's my comment. I appreciate that more housing is being built, but I feel like there's just a pass on trying to figure out the traffic. And I think that can be dangerous in any kind of event, flooding, fires. So I hope you will address that. And if there's some document you can direct me to that actually has that provision, I'm sorry for taking your time, but I think it's so important for everybody who lives here that they can get emergency services if they need it and not be caught up in traffic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marianne.
Okay, and Marianne, if you could, okay. And with that, we'll give them another moment in case anybody else would like to raise their hand. Seeing none. And actually, Chair Reggie, could I just speak real quickly about Marianne's comment, just procedurally?
Yes.
Great. So those comments are really more in the purview of the Planning Commission, not so much the purview of the Design Review Board. So Marianne, what I would suggest is actually, if you would like to contact the Planning Division, we can put you in touch with the right people and get you answers to your questions. So for instance, you could use the email address planning@cityofsanrafael.org. That's planning@cityofsanrafael.org. If you just shoot an email to that general inquiry, we can follow up with you.
Thank you, Jeff. And are there any more hands or speakers from the public?
I see none.
Okay. With that, we will.
Can I ask another question? How many parking spaces will be on this site for the 70 units?
Marianne, I'm sorry, we can't answer that at this time.
Really? Oh, okay. Why is that?
Well, we're going to close the public hearing. We'll ask it as part of the board discussion.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I will contact the planning department. Thank you.
And with that, we'll officially close the public hearing. So now we're going to see if the board members have any follow-up questions of the staff. And I think the first question might be about to answer Marianne's question if we know the number of parking spaces being provided.
Yes, the total number after those uncovered spaces was removed is 140. And I do want to clarify, because the applicant mentioned earlier that the parking complies with the zoning regulations. That is true, but also I want to make everyone aware that the project actually has a lower parking ratio because it's subject to state density bonus law, which allows for reduced parking ratios when you're providing affordable housing within the project site. So just wanted to clarify that point.
Sharon, do you have questions for staff?
I just see on the drawing it says 136, not 140 in terms of parking spaces on sheet SP1.
That probably represents the first first design before they took out the 4 spaces for the landscaping.
But this is the document they're presenting for us tonight.
You know how that happens sometimes, you miss something.
Yes.
So do any of the board members have additional follow-up questions for the staff? No?
I have a question. Just to, you know, in response to the parking thing, I assume that Vivian Street, you can park on the street, right? It's not, there's no parking on the street. So there is ample street parking on Vivian and Belvedere too, I guess, but that's a little less complicated. I mean, it's a little more complicated because of the driveway, but all along that Vivian Street, you could park. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so there will be some guest parking available that way.
Okay.
And sorry, I do think that Member Kowalski is correct that it is 136. I do apologize. It's because of the introduction of the 1 unit, the 1 bedroom units, which have a lower parking ratio. So that would be why it would be the 136 rather than the 140. So I do apologize for the miscommunication there, but that is the.
Okay, thanks, Crystal. Now we'll go through the board member comments. Let's see, let's start with Larry. You want to start? Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. Well, I think they did a great job of increasing the amount of landscaping. And at first I thought if we're losing 4 guest spaces, but I'm convinced that it's not required. So I think that was a good trade-off. I think Sharon was bringing up a point that I kind of agree with as far as the placement of the park, or not the park, the open space in front of building 200. I would think that should be moved over there's 4 building 300s in a row. And if that building 200 could be shifted over to the, what would that be, northeast, that would make open space a little more evenly distributed throughout the site. That right now it's heavily weighted onto the southwest end of the site. And then it would also help break up these 4 units, building 300. There's 4 big units that are just all in a row, and it enhances that feeling of this alley that I think would be helped by the movement of that park. And the building 200 is smaller and recesses, so it creates a little more articulation in the site plan itself. So I would suggest that be done, that they move the open space to break up those 4 building 300 units. And then going over to PR5, I don't think there's a really good sense of entry, which is one of our design guidelines in every residential design. In comparison to the other buildings on the back side of the site, they're designed a little differently. They have the recessed entries. I understand if they don't have the room to recess an entry, but there are other little architectural tricks that could be done just to make a better sense of entry than there is now. I mean, they could even project out an awning or some kind of a soffit that would have maybe even a splash of color that would say, this is the entry. Because right now, quite frankly, I mean, I love contemporary architecture, but this looks like a back door to the unit. And I don't think that's what you really intend. So I'd like to see a little better sense of entry on these units. I'd also, to me, these units cry out for some kind of fencing or walls or something, not even so much as security, but just to give a different layer to the street elevation, so that it's not just this blank wall that's articulated by punched windows and punched balconies. The concrete block, the CMU block planter starts doing that. It's not clear if that's the only one on this elevation or if there will be more, but I would suggest at the very least there be more. And like Sharon said, treat them with stucco or siding or something to give it a little more of a layered look to this elevation. But I think that would help a lot, because otherwise this is a very, very long blank, or not blank, but massive building wall along Vivian Street. And the more that it could be articulated, the better. There's been an attempt to articulate somewhat by the change of colors and then the recessing of those sided areas. I would personally like to see a little more play of color to break up the buildings a little more visually, even if not in actual articulation. But I mean, I look, if you look at the entire block of Vivian Street, the elevation of Vivian Street, it's pretty unrelenting, and I think it needs a little more pizzazz. But particularly the sense of entry, it really concerns me. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. How about Stuart? You gonna go next?
Yeah, sure. I missed the last meeting, so I'm kind of playing catch up on what the last comments were. You know, it seems to me that we were steered more into responding to the comments of the last board meeting, which were the landscape issues and the outdoor use. So Larry's bringing up some items that I'm unclear on what discussion had happened at the prior meeting. I do agree that a sense of entry would be good. You know, my first visceral reaction when looking at this for the first time tonight, and I apologize to the applicants for missing that last meeting. It is a little monotonous. It is a little monolithic looking to me. So I think Larry's kind of saying that in the same manner. I think you did respond to those last board comments well. I think the outdoor increase in outdoor space was fine. To the public, Marianne, who's still on board here, it looks like parking and all of these traffic issues are not part of anything we are actually allowed to discuss on the design review board. We're really looking at design issues, and those are, as Jeff indicated, very much planning commission issues. So I would urge you to attend and make your comments when this thing goes up to the next level, because we've generally been told those things are off the table if they meet the standard, which in this case they do. So I think they actually did respond to those comments. Well, I'm not as concerned with that outdoor space location as Larry, but since he's opened the door for me a little bit, you know, the sense of entry, the materials on your elevations and your 2D drawings actually struck me a little more palatable than when I looked at your 3D rendering. It just looked, I don't know, it looked a little sterile to me. So I don't know if we're too far to start looking at materials. The block wall, definitely, let's make it something closer. And then speaking back to Denise, I think you nailed it. It's kind of a tough project. I grew up in this town, so for me to sit around and saying you got to make this thing perfect and like it's in some you know, established residential neighborhood would be crazy. And this notion, like you said, I don't agree with the walls. I think you're dead on. I think we need to, someone's got to throw something like this up and see if it catches, and we can have it be the pace setter for the rest of this area. Versus, you know, we got to face reality. We're between what used to be it's a bowling alley, there's a hardware store, it's car dealership row. So the notion of the project is appropriate moving forward. So I just wanted to make that comment because I heard you loud and clear, and do agree with that. So I don't know if I've helped addressing Crystal's, what we were steered to tonight to comment on, which was the response to the last meeting. From what I could read, you've done a pretty good job at that. That's it.
Thanks, Stuart. Let's see, Jeff, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, I thought the focus tonight was mostly on the site plan and the landscape plan, and I was really glad to see they found more landscaping. I think the distribution makes a heck of a lot more sense than the last one. I was probably mildly disappointed that the playground wasn't a little bit more centrally located. Most of my comments I kind of snuck in under questions, the artificial turf, the step, the CMU block wall. The only other small, and then I agreed with Larry that, you know, when I looked at it, it looked like the entrances were a little understated. I don't know if you can punch it up with a little bit more detail or color, but it looked a little understated to me. And then the only other last little thing I have, really some design minutia. The tables at the playground on the north end there, if you want to activate that area a little bit, maybe bring in some of those tables, have them gaming tables. You know, we have the imprint of a chessboard or checkers board or something like that, and maybe have a little bit more fun there. And those are my comments.
Thanks, Jeff. Sharon?
Yeah, so I did sneak in my question comment earlier, but I do think it would be equitable to, and I think it would help your site plan as well to move that park more into the middle. I agree with Larry about the entrances. I think there needs to be a little bit more sense of place. I've been to a project like this in Alameda, and I couldn't find the address. It was impossible. Everything looked exactly the same. There, you know, you need to make a sense of place. There has to be a way that people can say, you know, how to get to their door and how I look different than my neighbor, or, you know, and I think the entrances really need a little punching up, a low wall that, so your entrance, you know, you're in a private space. When you leave the sidewalk, then you're starting your private space, something like that. You need a little bit more design in it. I agree completely that the planter has to be the same material as the buildings. I only saw one planter. I'm hoping there's more, and I just don't see them on the plan. And I think they did a great job responding to the questions about the landscaping. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Sharon. I guess my comments, I agree with what I heard from everybody about the sense of entry. I don't think, you know, I agree with Stuart. I don't think walls or fences or anything. Maybe it's color, maybe it's, you know, some kind of a, you know, thing that pushes out to kind of define it a little bit more, but some kind of a gesture I think could be nice at those doors. I appreciate the kind of modernism aesthetic. So that, to me, that's not the issue. But a little more enhanced kind of sense of entry from that street on the Vivian elevation, I think is what we're talking about. I agree on the CMU wall. It's a great planter feature. I think we all like the idea of it having the materiality that is the same quality as the rest of the building, whether that's one of the stucco colors or siding or whatever. I would leave that up to you guys. And then overall, I think you did a good job of addressing the open space and landscaping comments. I guess I stand alone that I actually like the park at one end. I think the way Denise described it as kind of orienting you to the arrival point makes a lot of sense to me. I am constantly lost walking around, and I think to know that you're on the park end of the development or on, you know, the smaller park end or something, I think they'll start to have like a little bit of a wayfinding aspect. And that's why, to Jeff's point, I'm wondering if that could be enhanced by, you know, there's like the games garden on one where the play tables have, you know, the game boards. You already have the playground with the play structure, something that just people can remember a little bit and differentiates the different park settings with the amenities I think you have. Might be a way to add a little bit of wayfinding that isn't, you know, is really neighborhood based. So the people who know the development get to use the different spaces for different things. And I think that's my comments. So now I think we should open it up for discussion.
I'd like to say one thing about the walls or the fences. I think a lot of those landscape areas are fairly small, and once you put something around it, you even draw more attention to the fact that they're not very big. So I think they feel more expansive without that kind of help.
Yeah, that makes sense. So do we want to have some discussion, or Jeff, do you think we can put together, do we have some consensus?
Yeah, so let's see here. So we got a few items I think that everybody's pretty much in agreement on, and a few items where there's sort of different perspectives. So from what I'm hearing, I'll just put through the list and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. The first item that it sounds like everyone's agreement on is the sense of entry for the units facing Vivian could really be improved. So incorporating things like a projecting awning or soffit with a splash of color to really give it that sense of an entry for those units. I think everyone was in agreement in terms of changing the planter boxes from CMU to stucco, and also incorporating potentially some of one of the colors of the buildings, and also potentially even increasing the number of them. Member Paul mentioned. And let's see, Member Kent mentioned wanting to make sure the step was at least 5 inches minimum on those units for Vivian. It sounded like they will be, but I'm not sure if you all want to include that as a condition. And then also Member Kent mentioned incorporating things like a chessboard or a checkerboard for at least one of those open space areas. So those are all the comments I heard that didn't really have any opposition, I guess, would be how to put it. And then the comments that I heard some disagreement is the placement of the open space. From what I heard, I think I heard at least a few of you feel it would be better to relocate it more towards the middle. I think one of you indicated not so much, you like where it is, and another one, I kind of had sort of a tepid, couldn't really ask no strong feelings one way or the other. And in terms of the fencing, it sounded like most of you did not want to require any fencing, although one of you did. So that's my summary. Please let me know if I got it right or wrong, or anything to add.
Can I chime in on just something I thought of, given the urban area that we're in and the stucco planter walls versus the block? The block was looking a little too, urban for me. Stucco sounds lovely. On the other hand, I know for a fact, just looking around town, kids with skateboards and everything, they're going to tear it up. So maybe something that's a little more uninviting for them, because when we see these stucco planters around town, we end up having to come back and putting these steel plates on them to stop the kids from skateboarding. So I would actually maybe even think you guys do some kind of irregular stone veneer that looks really sexy on one hand and then also stops these kids from tearing it apart. So just a thought. I mean, I would like my landscape residents and to chime in on that, but I mean, it is an actual legitimate problem.
Actually, I think you're going to have to knob up the planters no matter what material it is, or skateboarders are going to skate on it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
And just given, I think we're going to have an area where kids are going to be flying around there on their boards. Good for them. So maybe we need a skate ramp in the park. Have you thought of that? That's kind of that just dawned on me while we were sitting here asking for the comments. So we can discuss. Sounds like we're going to discuss more.
Okay, yeah, CMU planters with more of possibly a rough finish, something anti-skateboard friendly instead of stucco. I was thinking that the stucco would be better than CMU, because if it ever got vandalized, it's more straightforward to paint stucco than CMU. It could change the whole look of it.
Or even stone, like some stacked. I mean, it could look really cool. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
A whole new material.
Yeah. Something new. So I think
I'm okay with the park move. It sounds like most of you guys want to shift to the park. I'm not opposed to that. So that's okay with me.
Okay, let's talk about the park. So I think everyone else wants to move it. Is that right, Jeff, Larry, Sharon?
I think it needs to be moved because, like I say, it seems like it's all weighted on the one end, and the people towards Belvedere only have that little part, that little open space, which is on the street, so it's not quite private. Whereas if you moved it over more towards Belvedere, that one little space that the 4 parking spaces were taken out of, I think that would help do a couple things. One, it brings the space more to that end, makes it private, and breaks up these 4 building 300s, which I think is going to be kind of deadly, quite frankly, because that's where that was one of the original, I think, comments that we had when we first saw that it was just creating this alleyway that you see so often, like in the San Fernando Valley, for example. And I think the applicants have done a great job of landscaping that, so it's going to soften that particularly. And then to have it, bulb out into this little open space between the building 300s, I think is going to really enhance that alleyway.
The only problem I see with that is looking at it, this is one of the benefits of not meeting in person is we can pull up aerial photos and whatnot. And when you look from an aerial view of where that park is, where we're suggesting and making it more centralized, it's going to be kind of backed right up to an adjacent building. And that seems a little obtrusive to me, where I could think maybe they located this park where they did because it wasn't necessarily going to be looking at the side of the wall of a building, so maybe we should ask them if they're going to look at relocating it, that we don't put it in some miserable location also.
Are we talking about the same open space?
The way I'm looking at an aerial photo, I mean, I'll let Matt and Denise speak to it because they know their site a little better than I do.
Can they answer questions, Jeff, at this time, or have we closed?
Probably not. I'm sorry. Yeah. I just faux pas.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's up to you all. I think we could. I think we would just need to open the public comment after if we did.
Yeah, that's in this case, it's not so bad. I think I would just say if we're asking them to relocate the park, then let's not make the mistake of making them relocate the park to a miserable location.
Stuart, are you talking about the park right off of Belvedere Street? I'm talking about, I'm not talking, I don't call them parks anyway, I can just call them open spaces. But I was talking about the open space in the small open space in front of building 200. I was talking about the site plan shifting building 200 and that open space.
Okay, you're looking at a different one. Okay.
Yes. I know. I think the one at
disregard my comment then.
I think the one on Belvedere Street works great because it opens up that entry, and you're absolutely right. It would be looking against a big building. That doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
All I was saying was, you see the 4 building 300s behind that park or that open space. If the 2 building 300s to the left of that were moved over to where building 200 is, and building 200 and the open space were moved between those 4 building 300s, I think it would really do a lot for this whole site plan.
I agree 100%. That is not the one I was looking at. So
okay, good.
Okay.
We got that clarified.
Thank you. Guilty of missing the first meeting. Thank you.
Okay. So any more discussion that we need on the open space? I think we have another consensus item, if not. Okay. And I think that was, at least according to my list, the last of the discussion items. We talked about the open spaces, the sense of entry, the planters. I don't know that we need to add a condition about the 5-inch step or the game tables. It seemed like the 5-inch step was already a minimum that was being incorporated, and the game tables seems like the applicant is amenable to that, but I'm not sure if we want to make that a condition.
If I'm not mistaken, Sarah, the building code requires only a 4-inch minimum step,
Okay.
not 5. So I think 4 inches is the minimum.
Okay, so we could add it as a condition that the steps are 5-inch minimum at the entries on Vivian. Oh, you're saying if we make it more than 4, then we're violating the building code. So we should.
Well, I'm just saying is that all they have to do is 4 inches, and that really achieves the objective. You're trying to get it raised so that there's some kind of sense there, right?
Okay. Well, I mean, I think what we heard was it was more than 5 inches, so I don't think we need to make that a condition.
No.
Okay.
As long as they meet 4 inches, that's fine.
Okay. Jeff, did you have a comment?
No, I agree. As long if building code is 4, I think 5 is a more gracious step, in my opinion. But if 4 is building code and they have to meet building code, obviously. And as far as the game tables go, that's kind of an applicant's choice, but I would encourage them to do it.
Okay, so maybe we can put that on the encouraged but not required item list. Okay. Sharon, did you have a comment?
Don't. No.
Okay. All right, then I think we can go back to see if we can put a motion together. Jeff, can you go back through the list? I think that would help us.
Absolutely. So comment 1, move the park in front of building 200. I mean, essentially that whole building 200 with the park more towards the center of the site between one of the building 300s. Comment 2, improve the building entries facing Vivian with something such as a projecting awning or soffit or splash of colors and or some combination. And
Jeff,
then the third one, oh yeah.
Sorry, I think it's not improve the building entry, it's improve the sense of entry, which is the requirement.
Okay. And then last one, changing the material for the planter, which we actually had some additional discussion towards the end there. So just confirming everybody's still on board. Stucco, or people were amenable to Mr. Summers' comment about potentially some stone.
Yeah, I think board proof probably is, tough enough to be able to handle skateboards.
Yeah, leave it a little more open-ended, not say stucco or stone, but skateboard resistant. I don't know what the right word is.
Yeah, just keep in mind the skateboards, and it will happen. And it's not so much the face, it's the issue, it's the cap.
Yeah.
Okay, so improve materials for the planter, such as stucco and or stone, and keeping in mind the potential for skateboards.
Perfect.
How many points was that? 5?
3.
3. I can make a motion for the 3 points just iterated by Jeff Ballantine that we approve with the conditions of the 3 things. Is that the right way to do it?
I will second that motion.
Okay, would the board members like to have any discussion on the motion? Larry, you're muted.
Just for clarification, then, we are approving this with conditions that they will not come back to us and see. So we're leaving it up to staff to determine whether they meet these conditions or not.
I believe that's the case. Jeff, can you confirm?
That's up to you all. One thing that we've done in my previous jurisdictions is I can at least follow up with the chair or another designated person just to make sure things are sort of in line with the intent of what the board had in mind. But that's up to you all, which direction to proceed.
Yeah, I think from my standpoint, it can be up to staff based on the recommendations, the approval with the recommendations.
That won't work for me though. So I would either ask that we include a condition that if it's being reviewed by staff in consultation with the chair, I'd like to see someone on this board actually give its blessing to whatever happens.
Or it could be with a member of the board who would like to volunteer. It doesn't necessarily have to be the chair.
That sounds good. So should we, Sharon, can you amend your motion to include that fourth point?
Okay, I'll amend my motion to approve. Staff needs to get approval from a board member who will be chosen. And I don't know how to word it. I'm so sorry. That's enough.
I'll move that we approve the project based on the consensus items as outlined by Jeff tonight, with an additional comment that the staff consult with a member of the design review board to confirm that they've adhered or complied with the consensus items.
Nice.
Okay, is there a second?
Member Kent seconds.
Okay, should we have any further discussion on the motion? Okay, then I think we should do our roll call vote. Back to Jeff.
Okay, Board Member Kent?
Aye.
Board Member Paul?
Aye.
Board Member Summers?
Aye.
Vice Chair Kowalski?
Aye.
And Chair Reggie?
Aye. And with that, the application is approved with the amendments as, or with the requirements as stated. Thank you guys for bearing with me on my new chair position and getting used to the script and these things, so thank you. Next up, we'll move into the director's report. Back to Jeff.
I don't have much for you. I think our housing element is still moving along. We're an update on our objective standards process. I think at least a couple of you were on the board back in 2019 when this was brought to you. That's the last time it was brought to you. So we are picking that back up with our consultant, Roads Planning Group. So that's all that's to say is we are picking back up the pieces and looking to bring something to you all, hopefully within the next month or two on that. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Are there any board communications to the staff at this time?
Yeah, I have a couple. One of them I brought up before, and Jeff's pretty new. This notion that we have public time at the beginning of a design review board meeting when we're advisory. Jeff, I'd like you to kick that around with staff. I've been on this board for 16 years, and that's never something we did until recently. I don't know where it came from. We're an advisory board. We're not the planning commission. We're not the city council. I don't think we should be wasting our time hearing the public hearing about issues that we have no purview on or are issues. We're here to talk about the design of these buildings and projects in front of us, not to hear people gripe about whatever they want to gripe about. That's not our role. So I would like to formally ask that provision of our meetings gets removed, because it can turn into a nightmare if we have a controversial item that we really need to spend our time on. So that's comment A. And I think the script got flipped a little bit where we used to have staff communications and board communications, but that's okay. And then when's the next meeting? Just out of curiosity, just because I'm terrible with my calendar.
Yeah, let's see here. So we do, looks like we are targeting the second meeting in April. So would that be, that would be the April 19th?
Perfect, thank you.
Assuming there's no holidays, yeah.
I have a question. We didn't have board time, just us. Like the applicant was on the call the whole time. Is that how it works? I thought there was a time where we, as a board, we talked and then we went back to the applicant.
Well, we're coming back in person next month, aren't we?
Oh, are we?
I heard it was April. We were targeting in-person meetings. Is that a true statement?
So what I've heard from the city clerk is that's the goal for the city council. I think it's to be determined for other bodies.
Okay.
But yeah.
It's coming.
In answer to Sharon's question though, the procedure was always that after the applicant made his presentation, that was it. And then it came back to the board and we would discuss it. and the applicants always wanted to make a response, and we sometimes let them do it, sometimes don't. It's up to the chair's discretion as to whether we want any, maybe sometimes we have a question that comes up in our review or our commenting that maybe the applicant can shed some light on. So then we open it up to them. But a lot of times they just want to rebut whatever we say because they think that, well, they want to say it.
And then Jeff's correct. The minute we let them speak by law or by policy, we have to then open the public meeting back up. So it can become a slippery slope.
Exactly. But Stuart, I had one question, about the public comment period in front of our meeting. I don't recall it ever being a problem. I mean, hardly anybody comes to our meetings and bring other things.
We did have a meeting like a month and a half ago. I think Jeff can attest to, because we talked about it afterwards, where we did have the public come in and like burn about 20 minutes of our time on various whatever. It's just something that was, some of them tried to come in about the topic. Some of them tried to come about something else. It would be just much easier from a procedural standpoint if it didn't exist. That's my feeling, because we're an advisory board. If we actually had decision-making power and we're more formal, even as formal as we are, then I totally agree with you. But that's just has been my experience in the 15 years I've been on this, and Jeff even longer, probably like 50 years. Or how long you been on this, Jeff?
Crap. Well, I lost track. I think it's somewhere up around 21.
Yeah, see?
I stopped counting right around 10 or 11.
Well, so Larry was, just for full disclosure, Larry was on this board and he's just back now.
I think I'm a senior member, right?
Yeah, I think you are. You were there before me. So.
And Stuart, are you suggesting that the public wouldn't comment at all, or would only be allowed to comment on topic?
No. On topic, yes. Yeah. But the whole, at the beginning of the meeting, if there's anything not on the agenda, the public wants to speak about, I'm thinking like, that's not part of our deal. It never has been. I think when we got the new director and the new planning manager, maybe that's how it was done in Berkeley or who knows where. That's when that appeared like 3 or 4 months ago. And I remember I raised my hand right away. I was like, what are we doing?
Yeah, we didn't do that for my first 21 years.
Exactly. So Jeff, I mean, I'll put it back to Jeff to kick it around with Leslie and Alicia and everybody else to see if that's actually something we think is useful in design review.
Absolutely, yeah. And what I'll do is maybe even just check in with the city attorney just to make sure there's no law that may or may not require that. And I'll give you an update by our next meeting.
Yeah. And the key being that we're advisory,
I think the problem is that, people really look at the design review board as having a lot of influence, even if we're not formally a decision-making body, that we have a tremendous influence, and they see a lot of these issues as design related. And like, even for example, this whole idea about parking that we cannot talk about, I don't get that one, because being the senior member, we have always in the past talked about parking, not so much traffic, but parking on a site, because as we all know, as architects, form follows parking. And
I don't disagree with you. I've just been on the receiving end of being scolded by the council and the city's attorneys as years have gone by here, of being told, like directly, like when I was chair, you cannot talk about this. I've been directly told by superiors to our board that those items were off the table. So what, Larry, I totally welcome it. I just got scolded enough times.
Anyway, what I was going to suggest is also, if as far as the public comment period, maybe if we need to keep it, I don't know if we need to keep it or not, but if we need to keep it, what if we put it at the end of the meeting rather than the beginning? Because that in itself probably will weed out a lot of people.
So wait, can I maybe let me jump in here? I'm a little there's the Brown Act that does have some provisions about speaking too long on an item not on the agenda. So I just want to kind of be wary of that. And so I don't want to go too much longer on this topic. If that's all right with you guys, what we can do is I'll come back with an update next meeting to confirm sort of if there's a state law And then maybe we could even put on the agenda for discussion for everyone to sort of whether or not we want it and where it might be on the agenda.
You really are by the book. I like it.
And I have just one quick comment, which I've been trying to get in. And when someone is talking about an issue we're not part of, I think the staff should tell them and it should get cut off. We can't just keep letting it happen.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bud?
Yeah. I mean, cutting somebody off mid-sentence is kind of another level, but happy if anyone has questions or want to kind of talk to me offline, maybe we can do that. And if we want to bring anything on the agenda for a meeting to discuss, we can do that as well.
Okay.
Okay. Any other communications for the staff at this time? All right, then this meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
You're rocking it.
Good seeing y'all.
All right, nice to see you.
Oh, Jeff, let's not have a one item meeting next meeting, okay?
Well, wait, so
You're like a broken record.
yeah, during my last update last time, what I agreed to is not having 2 consecutive meetings with one item. So having 2 meetings in 1 month is a lot. And so definitely what my intent is to not have multiple meetings in 1 month if there's only one item on those meetings. However, if there are items, then the intent is still at least to have that one meeting every month, even if it's just one item, to keep projects moving along. That's sort of the direction that my higher ups have given.
I mean, that seems
above your pay grade to decide.
It was still an hour and 20 minutes with one item. So I think that still make it, still takes a chunk of time. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Adios.
Thanks.
Happy summertime.
Oh, geez.